coincidentally enough, we've got MJ Seawall again, and since we've got MJ Seawall again, I wanted to plug his book, Wild Monsters Dance About Stories from an Unruly Mind, MJ Seawall, and I'm hoping that you can find a link to where folks can buy it, and failing that, if you can find a link to the two weekly updates where I read Toasting Lester and It's the Now, the first two stories in the book. Still only the two stories that I've read of Mike's work, but two really stellar short stories. See if we can drum up some business. Anyway, MJ Seawall asked, "Hey there, Manly Matt. Super early question for Dave." This was like January 16th.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks about placeholder Dave Sim in the middle of the month, except Mike Seawall, I guess. At the height of Cerebus, how many copies were you giving out for free or trade? Were you getting as many freebies in return? Feel free to use this question as a springboard to tell fantastically interesting anecdotes about the freewheeling 80s and 90s roller coaster of comics industry folks. No pressure, thanks. And you wrote, "Good man, that Seawall, with a dozen more like him, these things would take 12 times as long," which is a good point. Which I'm now going to reinforce by reading as quickly as I possibly can the Aardvark Anaheim freebies list from 1996. I believe it's 1996, February 30th, 1996. Freebies, Library of Congress, National Library of Canada, Twilight Twins. That was Zalastria and Mr. Ecterling, Zalastria and the Bard. My girlfriend way back when. They were deleted from the freebie list January 6, 2000. National Library of Canada again, Paul Pope, when he was in Columbus, Ohio. Deleted March 16th, 99. This is how Dave Sim found out that he had become a pariah in the comic book field. When people don't contact you to tell you that they changed their address and please keep sending me Cerebus, they're definitely telling you something. Amazing Heroes, attention, Kim Thompson. Sergio Aragonés stayed on the list right through to the end. Terry Austin stayed on the list through to the end. Terry Beatty, Miss Tree artist, stayed on the list. Library of Congress, I already mentioned. Allred and Allred Inkheads Incorporated. That's Laura and Mike Allred. Murphy Anderson. Chris Ashby moved with no forwarding address January 8th, 2001. Chris is the black guy on the back cover who looks like, of Church and State Volume 1, who looks like Lionel Richie. That was his nickname, Richie. And he was a Peter's Place friend of mine. Mike W. Barr, comics professional. Bob Bose Bell, who's a wonderful cartoonist in Arizona, and took offense at me at some point and sent a snarky letter, which unfortunately that happens, but I still got Bob Bose Bell's work, and that's what counts. Linda Berzins got her nose out of joint. She was the typesetter and proofreader on Cerebus back in the 1990s. Chester Brown, all the way back to Avenue Road, and then on to King Street West in Toronto. Bob Burden, oddly enough, although different postbox number. Sharon Cho in California, one of the Berkeley crowd, deleted February 28th, 1998. Definitely became one of the Dave Sim is an evil misogynist people. Max Collins, writer on his street, he stuck around to the end. Bruce Costa, columnist for the Comics Buyers Guide. Diana Schutz was on the freebie list, and got her nose out of joint over the Jeff Smith situation, and never darkened my mailbox again. Steve Bissett, always there. Richard Brunning, when he was actually one of the top executives at DC Comics, deleted January 19th, 1999. Eddie Campbell, Bloody Eddie Campbell, was on the freebie list through to the end, as far as I know. Although I think he and Anne were divorced by then, and I don't think it was a happy split. So if it was still going to the homestead, he probably didn't see the last bunch. Catherine Collins, the artist formerly known as Arn Saba. Comics Buyer's Guide, attention, Diana Advertising. I have no idea who that is. Howard Cruz, Stuck Rubber Baby. Howard and I mended fences in the literal and ambiguous sense of the term at the Norman Rockwell Museum exhibit, where we managed to get along, as Howard put it, by avoiding the areas where we had vehement disagreements. He asked off of the freebie list long before the end of Cerebus. Dan Day, Gene Day's brother, and a substantial artist in his own right. That was when he was in Lansdowne. Dave Dixon, who I picture vividly in my head, a person that I knew in England through Neil Gaiman, and I think he was on the list through to the end. Martin Wagner, Double Diamond Press, deleted March 28th, 2000. That was when Martin went deep underground, and I don't think anybody knew where he was. I don't think that was directed at me personally. I think he got into trouble with books and money that he owed people. Will Eisner Studios in Tamarack, Florida. Will Eisner was there to the end, and bought me dinner in Toronto. Came to a convention in Toronto. He said, well, if I got Cerebus done, he would buy me dinner in Toronto. Harlan Ellison, Sherman Oaks, California, was on the freebie list up to the end. Ernst & Young, that was our accountants for Aardvark Anaheim until they became way too big an operation that I couldn't afford. And Doug Montgomery said, there are much cheaper accountants than Ernst & Young now. Let me see if I can find you somebody. That was 3 accountants ago. Gail and Joe Urslavis. That was Gail Jack, later Gail Day, Gene Day's widow. And Gail and Joe shacked up together and actually had a couple of kids. And then they broke up. So this has Gail and then a little box around and Joe and a note that says, eliminate Joe only. This is how our world goes now. Brad Foster, brilliant cartoonist, mini comics cartoonist in Irving, Texas. Jabberwocky Graphics was on the freebie list up to the end. Colleen Doran, no, this has got a big X in it. So there was a break with Colleen. Newport News. She I loaned her money to pay a printing bill. She didn't pay it back for a while, and then she did pay it back. And that was one of the situations where we were trading freebies. So she was getting Cerebus, I was getting a distant soil. And after she paid back the loan, that was it. I didn't get distant soil after that anymore. Kevin Eastman, I think if I went through all of the paperwork that we have at Aardvark Vanaheim, and just listed all of the addresses that Kevin has had. This is Post Office Box 417 in Haydenville, Massachusetts, and it's crossed out, and Suite 7B, something, Santa Monica Boulevard, West Hollywood, California. Like I say, I've got at least 10 more dating all the way back to when Kevin was just one of my fanboys. Scott Idle, member of Gerhardt's band, Dirty Shirt, Scotty Rotten. Emerald Limousine, which was the limousine company. Aardvark Vanaheim at one time was their second biggest client after IBM, I think. And Bob Neufeld, it says delete name. So Bob Neufeld was there, and then Bob Neufeld wasn't there. Jerry Moran, it was a bouncer at Peter's Place, and a friend of mine, deleted July 30th, 1998. He went into the military, so I would hear from him because he was a photographer in the military, and he would send me photographs, and then he changed his name from Jerry Moran to something else, and then there was, with the whole Freedom Convoy thing, and the real bad boys out west who actually tried to shut down the border, one of them was named Jerry Moran. And I'm going, I don't think it's the same spelling, and I hope it's not the same Jerry, because I sure hate to see Jerry have to go through what the Canadian government is doing to the Freedom Convoy people. Jules Pfeiffer, Vineyard Haven, Massachusetts, definitely a Dave Sim, the evil misogynist, never darken my mailbox again. No letter or anything to that effect, but just he moved, didn't say you can send it here. Clay Geardes, Comics World, who did the newsletter for years and years and years in Berkeley, California, deleted November 4th, 1997. Don't know what that was about. Steve Gerber deleted January 6th, 2000. I think that was when he died, and somebody notified us to stop sending the copies. He was in Burbank, California. Michael T. Gilbert, The Raid, he was there to the end and actually sent me a very nice drawing of Cerebus when issue 300 came out. Wilf Jenkins, my lawyer, was on the freebie list. Mike Kaluta in New York, New York. And I still got Mike Kaluta's phone number in my phone book. And I'm curious, is he still at this address in New York, New York? Because I know it was a rent-controlled apartment. And once you get one of those in New York, New York, you don't want to give it up because you'll never get it again. Jack Kirby, Thousand Oaks, California. Deleted February 23rd, 1999. That was definitely after Jack was dead. I tended to keep people on the freebie list in case anybody else there was interested in Cerebus. So I guess nobody in Kirby's family was interested. Dennis Kitchen, I think, was still on the freebie list. Northampton, Massachusetts. Rose Craigle is Gerhardt's significant other, and it's like, can't you just take this home to her, or do you really want her to be on the freebie list? Well, you put her on the freebie list. Rose gets a copy delivered to the house that she shared with Gerard. Dave Gibbons in England, and I believe he was on the freebie list right up to the end. Definitely enjoyed Dave Gibbons' company the few times that I saw him. Bill Krivitz, Zippy the Pinhead, who you figure has got to be a complete 100% California guy. But no, by the time we were sending the last issues to him, he was in Lyme, Connecticut. Bill Griffith doesn't strike me as a Connecticut guy, but what do I know? Jolly Rogers Studio. I have no idea what that is. Adam Kahn, the Chicago Maroon. I think that was a independent newspaper where got along with him like house on fire. Hey, let me put you on the freebie list. Gene Kirby, one of the Legion of Aardvark Anaheim representatives at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce in town. Collect them all. David Anthony Kraft, Fictioneer Books, who did Comics Interview, was on the freebie list up to the end. Steve Laffler, cartoonist in Oakland, California. Brilliant guy. My favorite work of his was Bughouse. George Lawrence, may be incorrect, but I think George was the drummer in Gerhardt's band. If he wasn't, I stand corrected. Larry Martyr, Bean World, was on the freebie list right up to the end. Alan Moore was on the freebie list. And I know that he bought the house, so I don't know if this address is still good. And I often think to myself, I really should get Rolly to dig out all of the Alan Moore parodies that we've done, put them in a big box, and ship them to the address that I've got here, and just see if they get to someone. Stephen Murphy, Puma Blues, in Northampton, Massachusetts, on the freebie list right up to the end. Barb Roche, who worked with Arn Saba on Neil the Horse, deleted April 15th, 1999. I think that was one of those, never darken my mailbox again. Karen and Bob Rittinger. Karen was Denny's sister, and Bob Rittinger, Boobah, Denny's and my brother-in-law, and they were on the freebie list right up to the end. P. Craig Russell in Kent, Ohio. And I remember saying to Craig on the phone, this was at the absolute height of Dave Who. Never heard of him. Don't even bother trying to talk to me about him. And it's like, Craig, you want me to write the introduction to your book? You want Dave Sim, the evil misogynist, to write the introduction to your book? Why would you want that? And he said, because it'll piss off all the right people.
Interestingly, my brother does a role-playing convention every February. It's like the last weekend or second to last weekend in February. And it's called Fire and Ice. And I used to, back before I went, I'm just not into this anymore. I used to go, and the deal is if you volunteer, you get con bucks, and you can use them to play games and stuff. Well, I would go with Paula, and she would play games all weekend, and I would work all weekend. And people were getting pissed off that, she's not a volunteer, how come she doesn't have to pay? And it's her husband works so she can play. And I would run the auction. And people would bring stuff in, and it's okay, blind auction, whatever. And it's all role-playing stuff and role-playing accessories. Somebody brought in P. Craig Russell's book. And they're like, this isn't anything to do with role-playing. I mean, it's fantasy, but it's beyond the edge of what we'll allow. And I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Really?
I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, let me take a look at it. I open it up and I see your name, and I'm like, well, I know what I'm buying. And I ended up getting it for $40, and it's cover price 80. I'm like, and it's got a signed tipping plate from P. Craig Russell, and I'm going. It was one of these. The guy that was running the convention with my brother was like, "Oh yeah, whatever, it's fine." And I'm going, "You guys don't understand. This is worth more than the cover, and I'm getting it for half off. I mean, if you'll let me, fine. I will run like my tail's on fire and my ass is catching." But you guys seriously don't want it? No, it's fine, it's fine. So yeah, I have that book, and I love that book, and I love the introduction, because it was one of those, I'm reading it going, I can see Dave saying this.
Well, okay, we're interrupting my freebie list, but picking up on that, that was the first book that I ever saw on computer. Like, he sent me a disc of what the pages were going to be, and it's like, this is really, really weird. I've never watched a book on television, and I'm watching a book on television, and okay, well, just as Taylor Swift advises us, shake it off and just write as if you were looking at an actual book. Oddly enough, the publisher was not really good about getting copies of the book to people, so I've never actually seen, let alone owned, a copy of P. Craig Russell's book.
Well, I guess my copy's going in the box of stuff I have to send Dave.
Well, unless you really treasure it as much as you do, maybe we can wait and find out if somebody finds one of them going for $5 or something like that. It's one of those time periods where it's either something you'll have to pry out of somebody's cold dead fingers, or something that somebody goes, "Oh, I got one of those someplace." But it's just very odd that, yes, I might have to correct that and say, I think I autographed one of them someplace and was absolutely hypnotized by it, because it's like, I've never actually seen one of these. This came out really good. This is what my introduction looks like in P. Craig Russell's book. And this is what P. Craig Russell's book looks like. Because I got to tell you, when you watch a book on television, it just doesn't stick with you like a book does. So, all right, interesting couple of digressions there. Bob McMillan, major collector, Canadiana collector, who actually had a lot of Canadian comics, Cerebus archive stuff, that I gave to him because he was the guy who really had all of that kind of material, and it really should be in your collection. He donated it to the Brantford campus of I forget which university. So someday that will turn up. I don't think anybody in Brantford has any idea who Dave Sim is, or would really care, but someday somebody will run across it. I don't think Bob McMillan's with us anymore, and we'll go, "Do you know what this stuff is?" And it's like, no. These are letters from Adrian Dingle, who did, the Black Canadian Whites back in the 1940s, and this is him writing to Dave Sim. And, oh, okay, well, we didn't know what that was, but it's all part of the collection. Todd McFarlane was on the freebie list right up to the end. Terry Moore was on the freebie list right up to the end, although every attempt to contact Terry Moore has failed. "Hey, Terry, you want copies of the Strangers in Cerebus parody? Or do you want to sign them? Sign your parody like Neil Adams did, and Kevin Eastman did." And complete zero on that. James Owen deleted for April 3rd, 97, but had second thoughts about it, and is still the only person in the comic field who apologized to me for, first of all, how he treated me and how the comic book field treated me. And of course, I forgave him. That's, I think, the first letter in Collected Letters, 2004. So that's always what I think of with James. Stand-up kind of guy. Linda Lessman Reinhold, the former girlfriend and more blimey press business person in the relationship with BWS, and married Bill Reinhold, and she was on the freebie list right up to the end. And I've even got her phone number written here. I think I phoned her a couple of times in this time period. Trina Robbins, definitely never darkened my mailbox again. Scan Color, August 13th, 02, did our color separations right up to the end, but I guess didn't want their freebies anymore. Ken and Mary Sim, my mom and dad, were on the freebie list. Socorro Public Library in Socorro, New Mexico. I forget what that was about, but one of those, you really need to be on the freebie list. So they were on the freebie list right up to the end. Jim Steranko on the freebie list right up to the end. Still very happy that I have Jim Steranko's phone number, but the last time I tried to phone him, he said, I'm standing here with a brush full of wet plastic, and I knew that acrylic paint dries really, really quickly. So that's always in the back of my mind. If I try phoning Jim Steranko, I'm going to catch him with another brush full of wet plastic, and that's the worst thing that you can do to a painter. John Toddleman was on the freebie list, as far as I know, right up to the end. Frank Miller, New York address. Tried contacting Frank a couple of times, including the last time I was in New York, and no response. Lynn Varley was crossed off. I don't know when that happened, but she obviously departed Charlottesville, Virginia, when it happened. Martin Wagner deleted. Again, I think Martin Wagner ran for the hills. The Robin Williams in San Francisco. Brian Hibbs, Comics Experience, had told me that Robin Williams was a very good customer of his. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, the next time he's in the store, ask him if he wants to be on the Cerebus freebie list. Brian had said, yeah, he's read Cerebus and he really likes Cerebus. And he asked him, and Robin said, sure. Gave Brian his address and forwarded it to me. And he was on the freebie list right up to the end. And when I went to Lenny Henry's birthday party in England, the showstopper video congratulations to Lenny Henry on his 40th birthday was from Robin Williams. So I actually wrote Robin Williams a letter when I got back, telling him how much of an effect this had on the crowd, and never heard back from him. Jeff Smith. Well, less said about that event, the better. Max Southall, Cerebus TV. This was back before that, when Max was in Miami, Florida. He's now, as far as I know, somewhere in Oregon. He was on the freebie list right up to the end. Don and Maggie Thompson at Comics Buyer's Guide. Don is circled, deleted February 23rd, 97, I believe so. That was after Don died. Frank Tapper deleted 6/3/98. I believe that was a guitarist in Dirty Shirt, Gerhardt's band, and I don't know why this is like crossed out and replacement postal code and deleted. 2 different dates for it being deleted. We'll just leave that alone. Rick Beach, I still hear from Rick. He still sends me his work. I still send him my work. So there's one. The Westfield newsletter was a real big deal. Westfield Distribution Company Attention, Casey Carlson. They were in your neck of the woods in Middleton, Wisconsin. BWS, Barry Windsor Smith. Woodstock, New York is crossed out, and there's a Kingston, New York address. So he was on the freebie list straight up to the end. Joe Zabel, Ohio cartoonist, used to do stuff for Harvey Picar, and he was on the freebie list. Michael Zully was on the freebie list straight up to the end. Rob Walton moved and didn't leave a forwarding address, but now Rob Walton and I trade publications. Greg Highland, Lethargic Lad. He moved and didn't leave a forwarding address. Greg and I are on good terms. He actually came all the way down to Windsor to help us move all of the Cerebus inventory when we closed the warehouse down there. Stan Pepis. I have no idea who Stan Pepis is. It's in Kitchener, Ontario, so it may be one of Gerard's. Joe White in Waterloo, deleted December 26, 1998. That was Beth's boyfriend. Beth was the nude model in Wibbon, where she said to me, if you're going to put me in the comic book, you have to make me a nude model. And it's like, she was, as far as I know, still working for the city of Kitchener when I was doing the stairs, the 10 flights of stairs at City Hall for exercise. Occasionally, I would see Beth coming down the stairs or up the stairs when I was coming down the stairs or going up the stairs. Ralph Wall was the brother of Doris Wall, and Doris was Doris in Melmoth, the blonde waitress. And Ralph desperately wanted to be a cartoonist, so Doris did everything that she could do to be nice to me so that I would be nice to Ralph. And as far as I know, Ralph's still designing websites. Chris O'Connor of Janet and Chris, Northampton Brewery in Northampton, Massachusetts. They owned and ran the Northampton Brewery, which made very, very fine craft beer. They were the couple that Susan Alston and I hung around with the most, which is interesting. I'm going to have to go pretty soon. The last prayer is coming up at 6:57 because the neighbor who moved in, Jennifer and Alex, on the second floor of the house the triplex next to the off-white house. I looked at her and I went, "Man, you look so much like Janet from Northampton." And I talk to her very, very infrequently, but I see her from time to time. And she was born the year that I broke up with Susan Alston. So she's got a 2-year-old now. So there's something that keeps it in perspective. At the time that seems like yesterday, when you're going out with Susan Alston and hanging out with Janet and Chris, this 24-year-old woman next door was born. Giant bold text: send 4 copies to Wizard Press. Isn't that funny? You go back far enough, and it's like, remember when Wizard Press was like, and Wizard Magazine was like the be-all and end-all? That, of course, you would send 4 copies of each issue to Wizard Press and get down on your knees and pray that they actually mention Cerebus someplace, because if Wizard Magazine doesn't mention you, you don't exist. Okay, I'm going to go and do my last prayer time. We're almost at the end of the freebie list. You may put two more pages to go.
Okay.
Talk to you in a little while.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello again, Dave.
Hello again, Matt. Okay, picking up where we left off. David Zapanta, Screaming Rice Press, did a comic book called Hairbat, and I did a preview of it in Cerebus, and that was one of those where you never know if it's going to find an audience or if it's not going to find an audience, or if the guy doing it is going to be able to keep doing it, even if he does find an audience. And that was a case where I think it was one or two issues and then done. And that was always unfortunate for me. It was definitely, it would have been nice if I could pick and choose. Okay, this one I want to be successful. This one I'd be fine if it went away. It never seemed to turn out that way. And telling an embarrassing story on myself, like I say, David's comic book was called Hairbat, and I was in Australia for OzCon in '95. I think I was there twice, '95 and '96, or '96 and '97, and the North American guest. And I was presenting the awards for independent, the indie comics. They're almost all indie comics down there. And talking about what an enthusiast I was for a title called Hair Butt in Australia, but I kept calling it Hair Bat. And Australians, being like Canadians, nobody even mentioned to me, it's not called Hair Bat, it's called Hair Butt. Hair Butt the Hippo. And it's a wonderful strip, and just complete embarrassment, because you're the guy who's there to get everybody pumped up. The North American guest was going to say very nice things about the domestic cartoon scene, and the Australian cartoon scene, indie comic scene, has always been really, really good. And this is the mess that you made of it, Dave. And there's nothing you can do. You just have to wear that for the rest of your life. Indie Magazine, Jeff Mason. That didn't last very long, but that was nice to have a sort of indie version of Wizard Magazine. Jeff did a great job on that. Mark Hempel, Art and Soul Comics. I don't know if Mark ever forgave me for using his characters in guys, or if he sort of has this cantankerous put-on personality. So I could never tell if he was really hacked off at me or was just pretending to be hacked off, and actually liked the fact that I did a riff on his characters. Ken Viola, the Rolling Stones roadie in Andover, New Jersey at this time, he was on the freebie list up until the end. Bill Mainprize in Kitchener, friend of Rose and Gare's, was on the freebie list. Neil Gaiman was on the freebie list, and actually at one point said, please take me off your freebie list, because I really don't have enough comic books to be having to go to the store for these days, and Cerebus is one of them. And that lasted a little while until I became Dave Sim, the evil misogynist, never darken my comic shop. And Neil said, can you put me back on the freebie list? I'm afraid I can't get your comic book from my store anymore. Mike Cave, a friend of mine who was DJ and bartender at Peter's Place. He's commemorated on one of the guys' covers with. I used his last name. I should have checked this. I ended up working today instead of researching all of my questions for Please Hold for Day 7 for apologies. So apologies for that. But it was Cave Daw because the girl that he married, her last name was Daw and his name was Cave. So I put that on one of the bottles on the guys' covers. Tom Kittner, really nice guy, interviewed me for his pop culture show on the Washington stop for the 1992 tour, and was definitely one of the people who was just completely involved by Reeds, and that was it. He would stay friends with Gerhard, but he wanted absolutely nothing to do with Dave Sim ever again. Chris Ashby, Richie again, from the back cover of Church and State One. Chris and Lynn Ashby. This was when he got married. So I used to see Lynn from time to time downtown. She worked at a place on Ontario Street, and I haven't seen or heard from Chris or Lynn in many moons. FM International, when they were a distributor, attention, Wayne Markley. Wayne has been all over the place in the comic book field. I hope he's still out there somewhere. FM International was in, again, your neck of the woods, Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second. My friend Nick, who lent me the first 5 Cerebus volumes and got me into Cerebus, knows Wayne.
Oh, he does?
And I've met Wayne, and because Nick lived in Madison, so he knew Wayne, because at the time, Wayne was working for Westfield. And when I was going to meet him, Nick's like, he's basically you, but older. And I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. And I met him, I'm like, oh my God, he's me, but older.
That's true. That's true. I know Wayne Mark. I have a very vivid memory of Wayne Markley. I never thought of it that way, but
I met him in Chicago at Wizard World one year because he had come down for the show, and because he works in comics and lives comics. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be looking for. No, he was looking for old porn mags because there was a guy there selling old porn mags, and I'm like, okay. And I turned to my friend Nick, and I'm like, how exactly? I mean, he looks like me, and we have a similar personality, but like, I don't see myself doing that in 10 years. And Nick's like, you gotta understand, he lives comics, man. Like, yeah, but still, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, he probably when he was your age, and he looked 10 years down the road, he didn't picture himself buying old porn mags either.
I'm hoping he was buying them for the articles.
Well, we're also in a completely soon-to-be disappearing generation who even knows what a porn mag is. It's like, you want porn? Well, you got a cell phone. That's what you need your cell phone for. Just make sure that you clean it off afterwards. Rick Siegel was a Hollywood producer that I met at Lenny Henry's 40th birthday party. That was a real coup that Don French was able to get Rick Siegel to come to Lenny Henry's 40th birthday party because they had a falling out. Lenny Henry did a television show called Chef in England, and Rick Siegel bought the rights to do a North American version of Chef, and they definitely got into a major dust-up over how Rick was handling it, but it was very nice to see them getting along, and bygones will be bygones. And I had a very good time talking to Rick Siegel, and Lenny Henry had made a very big deal about me at his 40th birthday party, being there as Don French's gift to Lenny on his 40th birthday party, and the cake, of course, was a Cerebus cake. So Rick Siegel wanted to know who is this guy who's Lenny's hero. That was how Lenny introduced Dave Sim to people. This is my hero, Dave Sim. And I said, well, I'll send you some Cerebus if you want to read it. And it's like, yeah, I'd love to. So I got his address, and he was in Los Angeles, and I put him on the freebie list, and never heard from him again. Bill Gator, my second cousin, how does that one work? My mother's aunt's, my mother's sister's son, I think, was how that one worked. He was in Japan. He was a major monarchist, and got in with Japanese royal family, and was actually the tutor of the emperor's only child at the time, and quite a good gig that he had. And he had come to back to North America to visit. I guess this would be early 2000s, 2002, 2003. So if you want to know what your distant second cousin is up to, this is what he's up to. We'll be happy to put you on the freebie list. George Petru was one of the guys that I knew at Peter's Place at the end last year, 2 years. And George was, you think Dave Sim is outspoken. George put me to shame on that. Very, very, very funny guy. And he and his brother John were both musicians. And I don't think Cerebus was a big deal to him, but this was just weird enough to appeal to George, so I put him on the freebie list. Marcel Guldeman, no idea. Joe Matt, definitely got along with, got a couple of autographed Peep Show books from him, but definitely didn't hear from him after he moved to Los Angeles. I don't know if that has anything to do with Dave Sim, the evil misogynist, or not. But I think that's more Joe's just always busy being Joe. Seth, definitely never darkened my mailbox again. He would tolerate me as long as I was hanging around with Chester, and Chester was okay with Dave Sim being here. But it was one of my guilty pleasures was going down and visiting Chester when Seth was there, and we'd all go out for lunch or whatever, usually with Joe Matt. And I knew Seth absolutely could not stand me. And there's a certain entertaining quality to that, particularly when you get to be Dave Sim, the evil misogynist. You have to take your entertainment where you can get it. So I love Seth. He's a great guy, great cartoonist. But boy, does he ever really, really, really not like me. And Frank Cho, cartoonist. he was on the freebie list. He's the last one on the list. So he was the last one added, and I think he was on the list right up to the end of Cerebus. So there you go, Mike. When we do a thorough job answering one of your questions, we do a thorough job answering one of your questions, because you're one of those guys that when you get interested in Please Hold for Dave Sam, boy do you get interested, because we've got another Mike Sewell question.